Devonta Smith, wide receiver, Alabama.
That doesn't get old. Roger Goodell saying with the 10th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select. Personally, I was waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come out and just say we're on punked, and roll out like Landon Dickerson with the 10th overall pick, not the 37th, but they got it right. I still cannot believe it. I feel like I'm dreaming, whatever the stupid cliche is. And let's get to our next guest now, because I'm sure he has plenty of entertaining thoughts on what the Eagles did last night. And then we'll get back to our angry selves, what we know best with what they screwed up already here tonight. But John Marks of WIP joins us now, host of the Afternoon Drive Show up on WIP with former Eagle Ike Reese. John, what's going on, man? Your thoughts, 10th overall.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I think most Eagles fans, including me, are happy with the pick. I feel like a lot of people were, I don't know, maybe looking too much at that, looking at the 166-foot frame and 6 feet, and didn't have necessarily electric elite speed. But it's a really good pick, and it's somebody that's really, really going to help the Eagles year one, which I think is also important. You'll find out a little bit more about Jalen Hurts, et cetera. It gives them somebody to throw to. But just the entire night, and really the whole draft process, one of the reasons why they said they traded out of the pick was because that they didn't think Pitts or Chase was going to be there, and Howie ended up being right. So that was right. He properly read what was going on in the draft. He tried to trade up. It seemed like he was interested in the corners, which I would have been too, but so was Carolina and Denver. So he didn't get the corners. He was able to somehow make a deal with the devil and make a trade with the Cowboys. I'm surprised they did it, but I guess the Cowboys looked at it and said, well, the Giants are going to take Devonta Smith if we don't trade with the Eagles. So let's trade with the Eagles, get a third-round pick, and then the Giants aren't getting him. One of the two teams are getting him. But I think Howie did a good job in kind of navigating to still get the player that he needed to get. But if the Cowboys didn't make that trade, if the Cowboys would have said, nah, I'm cool, good luck, what are we talking about tonight, Ryan? Are we talking about a great first round, or are we talking about how they had to trade back, or they took a lineman with the 12th pick, or they took Kwity Paye with the 12th pick? So, they got the job done. He should be given credit. They won the night, but they're a little bit lucky that they were able to win the night. But I guess they had some luck coming their way, and something positive happened for the Eagles last night. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, they were due. You put your money on a number on the roulette table enough times. I mean, eventually you can hit it once or twice, right? I mean, I don't know. I look at it this way, John. Like, I think you bring up a good point about the corners, and from everything that I read and people I talked to that are smarter than me, it was J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, and the fact that they went 8-9, that was a lot of luck that benefited the Eagles as well. If you're looking at the Smith pick as a win, which most of us I think are, certainly the fan base is. So I think that was a really big aspect of it too. But I'm with you, man. Like, what is Jerry Jones thinking to say, okay, yeah, let's trade? It just seemed like let's team up and screw the Giants a little bit and make sure they don't go and get something that we don't want them to get.
Yeah, I mean, they got a third rounder for it, too, so I guess they figure if you're going to make a deal, not making a deal with the Eagles is really, you're not doing it because you don't want to help a team in your division, but you're also kind of screwing the Giants there, too. I think that the one criticism that I heard today was, well, you could have had Surtain or you could have had J.C. Horn if you would have kept the pick. But, I mean, if you just kind of look at the end result is you have a first-round draft pick next year and you have Devonta Smith as opposed to having Surtain or J.C. Horn. So, for me, a successful night. I'm happy with Devonta Smith. For all the people that are worried about the size and the weight and the height, like, listen, I totally understand, but he is going to be a huge upgrade over anything that this team has now or has had for a really long time. So it's exciting. It's exciting to get somebody that can actually make some plays.
Does this change anything for you for the season? Crazy question potentially, but your thoughts now on the pick and how it impacts the year.
I mean, I don't know, man. I think that where you have seasons where people think that the Eagles will win 5 games or 6 games, and you look at the schedule and you're like, there's no way they could win more than that. But then the season happens, and for whatever reason, things are different, and the offense is rolling, and you have a last place schedule, so it makes it a little bit easier. I mean, honestly, I know this is probably BS, and it's difficult to do once the season starts. But really, this year should be a developmental season to where it's like, all right, what do we have? What do we have with Jalen Hurts? Can he be the guy going forward? Can he show us enough to where we're not going to investigate other quarterbacks in the draft or in free agency? We re-signing Miles Sanders to a long-term contract, right? What do we have with Jalen Reagor in year 2? Is Greg Ward? But you're really trying to develop some of these young players because the core of their team, their best players are older players that we know aren't going to be here that much longer. So really, games this year, I mean, they could win 7 games. They could win 8 games this year. Who the hell knows? It helps the offense. It definitely helps the offense, and maybe it takes some pressure off of Jalen Reagor too, right, to where now he doesn't have to be the primary weapon in the passing game because he just, I worry about him. I worry about him mentally being able to handle playing in a city like Philadelphia, and if you follow his social media, you can see that he's all over the place. So maybe that helps him a little bit too. But listen, you added a player that can play. And that's the biggest thing. Somebody can hopefully help you from day one.
I don't want to say I'm worried about this. This is probably a reach, but Jalen Hurts, one thing that I think we know and can agree on from what we've been told, he is a natural leader. He's well-liked, a lot different than Carson Wentz. So this year, now he has his guy a little bit in Devonta Smith. And what if Jalen wins this locker room, and now we're talking a year from now, the Eagles going – and trying to get another quarterback. And listen, if it's Russell Wilson or someone of that ilk, I'm fine with it. But I just think that's an interesting storyline because you're right. This team still needs to evaluate a lot of key positions. And the quarterback, let's just keep it real, is still the number one evaluation process that's still up in the air.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And here's what I envision with Jalen Hurts because I don't see him coming out and embarrassing himself, right? That's not the kind of player that he is. It's going to be whether or not over time he can develop enough of an NFL game, I'll say, to where he can make the appropriate throws, he can make the appropriate reads. He doesn't have to rely on running the ball too much because that's not going to work, right? He's not the type of dynamic runner that you saw with Lamar Jackson. And guess what? Lamar Jackson's going to have to throw the ball if he's really ever going to win in this league. So the worry for me with Jalen Hurts is that, just like you said, because the locker room will love him, right? His teammates are going to love him. He's a hard worker. He's a really good dude. He really is everything that you're looking for. So the locker room will love him. But the worry for me is that, does he show you just enough to where now you're like, well, I guess we have to make him the quarterback, right? He's just good enough but not good enough. And that's the one thing that you worry about. And it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison with Andy Dalton. But when Andy Dalton was with the Bengals and they hadn't had a good quarterback in years, and finally, right from his rookie year, Andy Dalton was really he was almost at his best in his first 2-3 years in the league, and then he plateaued. But when it came time to re-sign him and decide, is Andy Dalton going to be the long-term quarterback here, the Bengals looked at it and said, well, if we don't have him, then who do we have, right? So they kept re-signing him and kept re-signing him, and he never did anything. So that's the worry with Jalen Hurts, is that what we're going to see is very competent quarterback play, but is it enough to really matter and be good enough to win anything?
Talking to John Marks. Follow him on Twitter at John Marks Media, talk show host on WIP up in Philadelphia, Monday to Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. He's also on CBS Sports Radio on Sundays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Great follow at John Marks Media on Twitter. All right, let's talk about what they did tonight, man. You don't seem too happy. I'm with you. I don't love it. I think there was plenty of other talent and needs that the Eagles had to fill, and they failed to do so. I get the long-term aspect, but overall, I think they swung and missed.
Well, I mean, so you're not. I don't believe the Eagles are in a position to be rolling the dice with not just a second-round draft pick, but a high second-round draft pick. Look what happened last year at 53 when you drafted Jalen Hurts. You made a luxury pick to where you were trying to draft an inexpensive backup quarterback, and it blew up in your face, and everything went wrong, and Carson Wentz is now gone. Now what you're doing is you're taking the 37th pick, so very high up in the second round, and with needs all over the board, you went with an offensive lineman. Now, like, it's fine that you went with an offensive lineman, and this has very little to do with Landon Dickerson and the player that he could be. The problem is, as I'm sure you've talked about and everybody's talking about, is 2016 season-ending torn right ACL, 2017 season-ending ankle injury, 2018 season-ending ankle injury, 2020 torn left ACL, season ender in the SEC championship game. So, like, listen, it's a risk. It's a risk. And even if they love this kid, and by all accounts, everybody loves this dude, and he's got real potential, he, for what looks like it appears to me is it's going to be a guard, and they're saying a center or a guard. I'd be surprised if they use the second-round draft pick on a center. That doesn't feel like good value to me. But a guy that says can play all 5 positions, I don't see spending the 37th pick in the draft on a guy that projects to be a center or a guard when you have middle-round draft picks and a great offensive line coach to develop those guys, right? Like, that's why you have Jeff Stoutland, is to get a day 3 guy, a 4th-round draft pick, a 5th-round draft pick. If you can't find guards in the draft that can start to where you don't have to pay them Brandon Brooks money, like, I don't know what to say. So, I mean, hey, it might end up working out. He's certainly talented. He's certainly got a ton of athleticism. He's got huge size. It's just, for me, I would have went in a different direction because it is not. I mean, it's very risky, and I don't feel like the Eagles had the luxury of a risky pick at this point.
Yeah, they have too many holes. Like, they're not in a position. I'm not just going to repeat everything you just said, but I agree with you, John. Like, I understand the value, but this is a guy with a ton of injuries where you have a lot of other guys available on the board that, at least we think at this point, you can plug them in and essentially they can play right away at other positions that are just as valuable, maybe a little bit less, where you have needs. So I don't know. Well, you're right. We'll see. The draft is a crapshoot overall, especially as we get deeper, but this team has too many needs and too many unknowns. I think corner is the other one, and we talked about it with Horn and Surtain. Your thoughts at the secondary overall, the secondary spot now for the Philadelphia Eagles, going 2 picks into this draft and not addressing it?
Who are your corners? Like, you know what
Might
I mean?
be you.
Unless they have. All right, so one question that someone had asked me or brought up to me, which was, we don't know anything about the Eagles' new defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. I don't even think he's spoken to the media yet, right? Like, what is his defensive system? What is he looking for out of cornerbacks? Is he going to play? I've heard he's going to play cover 2. Is he going to be a zone guy? Is he going to be a heavy man-to-man guy? So if his philosophy is, I'm going to play zone defense, maybe they feel like there's a veteran wide receiver, a veteran corner out there that they can sign for this year, and then they're going to grab somebody in the 3rd round. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who's going to be the corner next year. Is it going to be Devonta Maddox and Darius Slay? Like, that has disaster written all over it. Is it going to be 3rd round draft pick in Devonta Maddox and Darius Slay? They don't even have the bodies. So I have to believe that they have somebody out there that is a free agent that they're going to bring in that just hasn't signed with anybody yet. I'm going to have to start looking at this because I would have thought that, and you don't want to reach. You know, I understand that. If you don't like a guy, you don't take a guy just because you have a need there. But man, it's just like the offensive line seemed like it was a luxury pick right now because of all the things that they have on the offensive line. They actually have some decent depth there with some of their younger players. But they need a couple corners, man. They need a couple corners, and you're going to be facing some really good wide receivers this year. And Slay certainly didn't live up to big play Slay last year, so I don't think it's going to get better this year.
All right, last one here for you, John, before we let you go. The Phillies, I'm just going to tie in Phillies and Sixers. The Phillies bats are nowhere to be found, and I just want your updated thoughts on the 76ers. They're blowing out the Hawks again tonight. Trae Young back in the lineup for Atlanta, doesn't seem to matter. Just real quick, your thoughts on the Phillies offense, lack thereof, and you can tie in your Sixers thoughts, too, to the end of that.
Yeah, the offense is what it is at this point, and luckily they're getting pretty good starting pitching, and some of their bench bats like Brad Miller, I know had a hit tonight. 3 hits tonight. The Phillies do. Luckily, the Mets only have the Mets only have 1 run, but you know what it's going to be, man. It's going to be Like right now, they're 12-13. They win tonight's game, they'll be 13-13. Then they'll win the next game, they're 14-13. Then they're going to lose the game after that. Then they'll be 14-14. It's just going to be a game over 500, a game under 500, 2 games over 500, 2 games under 500. I just don't think they have enough talent on their team to really do much more than that right now. So Phillies are kind of just like stuck in the mud with. Andrew McCutchen looks cooked. And like Hoskins is streaky. He is. He was, he had 8 home runs and he was batting .270 a couple days ago. Now he's batting .230. As far as the Sixers, it feels like the last time we spoke. I feel the exact same way. I don't see them having enough once you get to the playoffs and you get in a 7-game series, because you have Joel Embiid and he is an absolute stud. There's no doubt about it. But if Tobias just, I don't think is the player that can be a real number 2 when you're going up against Harden and Kyrie and Kevin Durant, right? Because Ben Simmons has been Ben Simmons in the playoff series. He just has. So until Ben Simmons shows that he can do differently in the playoffs, and he doesn't become a zero offensively when it becomes a half-court game, we'll see. But I mean, listen, they're if they can get that number 1 seed, it'll give them a better chance. But I'm kind of just snoozing through this rest of the Sixers season. Let's get to the playoffs.
Yeah, let's just get there already. I'm with you. Tobias Harris, he's had a nice year. I've been so critical of Tobias over the past year and a half, 2 years. Okay, fine. He's stepped up his game a little bit in the regular season. Until he shows me otherwise in the postseason, he's not that guy you can hand the ball to, or just he brings up the ball, whatever it is, and you need a bucket. He's not getting you one when it's the postseason, Game 7, late in a playoff game. He's just not that guy. And the issues with Ben aren't going away. So I'm just very reluctant when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. And with the Phillies, just to add to what you were saying, it's the same song and dance. Every year, you're battling 500, you get a couple wins, they look all right. I just don't know what that front office's plans are here over the next 3 to 5 years to get this team out of purgatory, because it just seems like they've been in it for way too long, John.
They have, and I mean, they pretty much maxed out on how much money they have, so it's not like they can just go out and keep writing checks. At some point, one of these young players, and Bohm struggled this year, and Spencer Howard needs to do something. They need some young players that aren't making a lot of money to come up and have success. And you look at the golden era of the Phillies, whether it's the 70s and the 80s or the 2000s, they were built with their farm system and their young homegrown players, and they became their stars. And until they get more of those guys, this is what we're going to see.
John Marks at John Marks Media on Twitter. Listen to him every weekday on WIP, Monday to Friday, 2 to 6 p.m. And you can listen to him Sundays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on CBS Sports Radio. Catching up with him here tonight on a Friday. John, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Anytime, brother.
Yep.
See you.
Later. There he is, John Marks. Good stuff from him. All right, let's get to a break. Much more still ahead. Sixers, like we briefly mentioned there towards the end of that convo with John, they're going to get the win, 123-99, just under 3 minutes to play. The Phillies are up 2-1 in the 7th. Let's hope they can hold on to this one-run lead and close it out. We'll also update you on what's going on in the second round of the NFL Draft when we come back.